This is the year 5.5/Apple/26, 5 billion years in your future. And this is the day? Hold on. This is the day the sun expands. Welcome to the end of the world.
Welcome once again to the Tin Dog Podcast. This week we're discussing episode 2 of the 2005 season, The End of the World. Ah yes, if you remember last time, what had happened was I'd watched Rose via some sort of early release, shall we call it, via the gift of the internet. Yeah, well, alright, somebody sent me a disc with it on, I watched it, it was great, there you go. Not much a review, but at least it's true. The problem is, I'd watched Rose, it was great, and it had left me ridiculously hungry for more. But of course, the internet leak had taken place considerably, a large length of time before the end of the, it was meant to be on. So when Rose finally airs, and Graham Norton does the laughing and things like that, it's ages. And I watch Rose again, and it's great, but then I have to wait a whole extra week for episode 2. Now, I know that Russell T contacted the BBC fairly close to the launch and said, could you show Rose and End of the World as a large, 1-2 part, an hour and a half movie? And of course it was a bit too close to the broadcast date, so they showed them separately. In America, I know that sometimes they show them together, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure it works. It is, for me, part of a trilogy that kind of defines the whole of the Ninth Doctor's time, or in fact defines all of New Who. You've got Rose, End of the World, and next week's review, Unquiet Dead. So, The End of the World became episode 2, which as far as I'm concerned is fine. Now, if I'd known this was going to be our big trip out, and this were all the aliens you were really going to get to see in one go, I would have kind of paid much more attention. But I thought that this was kind of a taste of things to come, rather than the main course. Oh, I'm being nasty about it. I really shouldn't be. The End of the World is a very good looking story. It kind of shows the world what the old school Doctor Who fans always thought the series looked like. We knew it didn't, but in our heads, that was the show we had all along. So let's have a look at it. Well, again, a fairly pedestrian story. Again, we're seeing the series through the eyes of Rose. There was a letter published in Doctor Who magazine saying, and this was several weeks into the run of Doctor Who, and it said something along the lines of, I'm really looking forward to the beginning of the new Doctor Who, but until Doctor Who starts, I'm going to watch this new show that's on a Saturday evening on BBC One called Rose and the Bloke from Up North Who Drives Her Places Through Time. And eventually I know that's how the series could fail to some people. That the series was so Rose-centric that, well, we were left kind of in the cold. But that's a very important point. New fans have to experience the Doctor through Rose's eyes. It's the only way. They have to learn about the Doctor. They have to visit the TARDIS in exactly the same way that Rose does. This is fine. This is more than acceptable. It's the only way that we could guarantee a new audience. There is a lot to say that this story is very good. I know you probably already watched it, so as a review goes, retelling the story to people who may have missed it is kind of pointless. So let's look at some of the things that are actually in the story. The aliens, quite well executed. Mox of Balhoun, quite well done. Kind of annoying voice. Not particularly pleased if he came back, but not really an issue. The repeated meme, well, you know, they're androids anyway. Things with big claws, not a problem. The aliens, who are children, or as my Doctor Who magazine says, adults of restricted growth. The story seems to take place on an orbiting space station called Platform 9 3/4. Or was that Harry Potter? Moving on. It also takes place in something called the Manchester Suite. Now, usually, if ever you've been to a Doctor Who convention, it's almost invariably held inside a place called the Manchester Suite, which is just kind of annoying. I'm not sure why it's called that. I'm not sure at all where Russell got that from. I don't know what it's a reference to, or if it's just some strange gag. But of course, the crowning glory of this entire story is Cassandra. Here we're presented with, to all intents and purposes, the BBC's first CGI character. I know she's basically just what happens if plastic surgery goes too far. And of course there are throwaway lines like, "when I was a little boy," which does make you worry or wonder at the storyline that takes place in the following season. But I'm getting ahead of myself. More aliens, of course, are the tree people. Very, very nicely executed. But you could see them in the old series. They are just the next generation of, say, the tiger people in McCoy's last story. And of course, there's the face of Bo. Now, the face of Bo is quite a nice prop, and bizarrely, in real life, if ever you get the chance to see it, it's even more impressive. However, the idea of the face of Bo being Captain Jack's eventual evolutionary face just makes you kind of question things. Apparently, the face of Bo is from the Silver Devastation, which is where eventually you find the Master. Now, is this retcon? Is this retroactive fixing of plots? Is this just referencing things that have gone before? We may never know. I'm sorry, this is all over the place this time, and I had made extensive notes. Of course, this story also marks the first time you ever see the psychic paper. Now, as the Doctor explains, it saves a lot of time, i.e. it saves a lot of plot explanation. Hello, yes, we're allowed to be here, moving on. And that's because in old Doctor Who there was a whole chat, explanation, who are we, who are you, what's going on. But this time there isn't time for that. We have a 45-minute episode. We have one chance to tell this story, a story that traditionally would have taken an hour and a half. And so things get cut, and the psychic paper is a marvellous plot device, but it's still a MacGuffin. There are, of course, several other things in this story that I'm not particularly fond of. Things like the Galaxy Quest homage, or rip-off, as it's known in the trade, with the enormous, pointless chomping things from Galaxy Quest, but in this one we've got the enormous, pointless fan. And then the Doctor slows down time. He's never done that before. Where did that ability come from? I remember all of the fans of the old series texting me going, "What's going on there?" I don't know. I'm not saying that Galaxy Quest isn't a great thing to lift, but let's face it, Galaxy Quest is more of your Star Trek area of expertise. There are some lovely speeches in this story. Things like Cassandra's conversation with Rose, where they discuss what actually makes someone human. And of course that is a recurring theme, illustrated by the very end of the episode when they go off to buy chips. Again, more of the hidden chip agenda. More importantly, the conversation between Rose and the Doctor, where they discuss various things that basically the series needs to get out of the way to a new audience. Things like, how come everyone speaks English? I know this was touched on by the Fourth Doctor being a gift of the Time Lords, but the TARDIS getting inside your head and having a psychic field, and even the way that's talked about, or indeed used in the Sycorax invasion, awfully well thought out. And of course, don't argue with the designated driver. It's great. This of course also marks the first mention of the bad wolf scenario, which becomes the major theme of the series. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just in passing. Another theme which occurs a lot, especially with Rose, is Rose gets separated from the Doctor and talks to a very low-level member of staff or somebody low down in the class structure and finds out a little bit more about the plot from what's going on. A traditional structure of a storyline is for the Doctor and the companion to get split up so that they can both experience the plot from different directions. Fair enough. But here, the theme of I'm going to talk to the members of staff is set out for the first time. We will be coming back to this time and time again. A few people have pointed out that when Rose rings home, how come Amam didn't class that as something that was mentioned when she returns home eventually? But Rose's mum actually asks for the lottery to be put on, which means she's phoning home before she's actually left, if that makes sense time travel wise. Getting back to Cassandra, she is a marvellously well executed alien. Cassandra does have that one thing that truly great Doctor Who monsters require, and that's good motivation. It's rather classic series monsters where you would have somebody just invading for a bit of a laugh or just because that's what they do. This person actually wants to make cash so that they can continue their existence. It makes sense. It always rounds out characters well. Of course, there are missing scenes. Not stuff that would appear on a DVD by any stretch of the imagination. Stuff that was written originally. Things like there was meant to be a large gallery that Rose would examine as she walked up and down, discussing the history of the human race, things about them leaving on giant space arcs, the Earth being invaded many times, that sort of thing. And of course that would have cost a fortune and Russell dropped it. It would have been interesting to see, but of course it would have set up a lot of continuity for later. I'm not terribly fond of Cassandra's spiders, but they do make sense and they are very well executed. But the thing I've not mentioned yet is the thing that grated at the time while I was watching it. Now, I did laugh when Cassandra brought out the Wurlitzer and went, "This is an iPod," but I was rather startled to discover the songs that were being played on it. Tainted Love came as a bit of a surprise, and the fact that the Doctor liked it and had a bit of a dance surprised me slightly more than the Doctor being able to dance in The Doctor Dances, if that makes sense. That was alright, but then Toxic by Britney Spears came on, and I was sort of sitting there going, yeah, what? What's going on there then? More hidden chip agenda? I don't know. Of course, this story, like the episode 42, has a bit of a countdown all the way through, which kind of adds to the whole suspense thing. And the thing that I do like is that as an audience, we do watch the destruction of Earth. We are the ones who get to see it, despite the fact that it's followed by Rose saying, "The world ended and no one saw it." But as an audience, we know we did. Next week, I'll be discussing The Unquiet Dead. A very nice story indeed. And also, I'll be reviewing the forthcoming DVD, Destiny of the Daleks. Be seeing you.
You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.